the biggest name on the market right now. Well, he was a name out there before he was technically on the market, but JT Miller for the Canucks started with, okay, there's some rumors of some squabbling in the Canucks and a little dissension there. We got something of like their captain saying, no, that's not true. A lot of denial. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, all right, we're looking to move him. There is some strife here. And everyone's just all in a tizzy about it because anytime there's fresh blood, I feel like the Canes sniff it and just go crazy with it. Especially because all reports always say the Canes are interested. And that's not like, I don't think that's false because I do think our front office is very smart to ask and always see what's being wanted from them. But again, we don't grab players willy-nilly and just see what happens with them. So it's also like middle of the season. You're second in the Metro. You're doing well. You've addressed like one of your issues that was kind of needing to be addressed was your goalie situation. It looks like that's getting solved. The Canes are never going to just bite at something dangled in front of them because
they're not a knee-jerk reaction team.
We're not a knee-jerk reaction team. We also aren't in the habit of taking on big contracts. What is JT Miller's contract right now, Zach?
Yeah, so you're looking at a guy who's in the second year of a 7-year deal. It's $8 million per. I mean, he will be an unrestricted. He right now is 31. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the age of 37 after the end of the 2029-30 season. So, yes, he does have 32 points in 36 games, which is a 0.89 points per game pace, but 24 of those 32 are assists, and he does carry 30 PIMs on the season. So, it's just opposite side of 30 with 5 years left with a lot of money in cap too.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what the ask is for him because it seems like the Rangers have offered different things and they have been denied twice.
Yeah,
I think it was a one for one with Zibanejad, and then I think I don't remember what the next one, but it was like 3-tier on the Rangers side wanting good to go that way, and that was also nixed.
Yeah.
Here's my opinion. I'm a little hesitant just because they said there's something of butting heads in that locker room. I don't really like to hear that coming from like this is a potential player. Even though we've had players in the past that there's been rumors about them not being great to be around. But the locker room seemed fine. So it could just be, there's just people there that don't like each other and that's fine. We all have coworkers we don't get along with. So that had me a little hesitant. The next part that has me a little hesitant is taking on that contract. If you look at the Canes history, we don't take on long-term lots of money unless we're very sure they fit the system, especially depending on their age. So if you look, some of our long-terms, obviously Svech, Aho, Jarvis, KK, Slavin. But I mean, look, Slavin's of all the deals, Slavin has been the oldest one to get a deal so long out, and that's because he has been
the AAV
so
is just
freaking consistent. Yeah. And he fits. Like, you're not going to let a player like that go. And he's not even like, there's no sign of decline with him. If you look at all the other ones where even if it's a little bit more pricey, they're shorter term. And a lot of that, I think, with these players is the Canes seeing, all right, is it worth to extend? Is it worth to keep them around longer? Are we going to benefit from this in the long run? So I don't see the Canes grabbing that just to give him a shot, especially when you're not like in super dire need at the moment. I know Canes fans feel like we are because we've been losing. But again, I pointed out on Twitter, we're second in the Metro without a legit 2C. Like we are doing better than what our reactions are, because again, the expectations are so high for this team that even when we're not, even when we're doing well, we always expect more.
Yeah, in a transition year too, that everyone thought we take a step back, and some thought we missed the playoffs. So we're exceeding expectations already with this roster.
Yeah. And I know, again, you said how many goals, assists he's had. I did put out there, okay, Eric Robinson is actually very close to the same stats as him. Yep. Mm-hmm. Again, you're like, well, he's not a center. He's a different type of player. They're not really comparable. Fair. But we also know Robinson works with our system now. That's a player that we took on for a lot less. And now we have like guaranteed that he works with our system and someone that could potentially will want to keep around. It's not a risk to have like what we did for them wasn't a risk. If you look at Gensel too, it wasn't a risk. Like we were like, let's see how this goes. And we were pretty sure he'd work out. And then when it came time to actually paying him, the Canes eventually, like they got on board with that. It didn't work out. But the Canes are very much of like, we know our system is hard. The guys talk about it. Rod talks about it. It's a hard system for even the most talented players that can go on. They can succeed other places, but the Canes system is difficult. So you just really need to make sure it's a fit so you don't get stuck with a long-time contract of a player that doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you look at it too. I mean, going back to the locker room stuff, if you look at we have a great leadership group. You got Stahl, Slavin, Jordo, not Jordo, Martinuk. I can't. So many Jordans. With Martinuk, even Aho, and plus you also got Rod Brindamore as your head coach, who expects certain things. Let's not forget Tim Gleason is the assistant coach. He never takes anyone's BS either. So you have a coaching staff and a leadership group that probably can make almost some be like, hey, this is how we do things here. Like, how do we not buck the system? And is Miller cancer? Who really knows? We can't really say, but yeah, right now he has, like I said, 8 goals, 32 points. Even with his 0.89 points per game pace that he's on right now, he's still, as from what I've seen and what I've heard, even from, Canucks writers over at the Hot Couriers talk about it, he's right now on pace for his worst career as a Canuck, and this is after he just had 100 points. So with Robinson, yeah, you're talking about a guy who's making $950,000 who I think they should extend because Robinson fits this system perfectly, and he's on a career year right now with us. When I want Miller, I'm neither here or there for that. I mean, it is what it is. If we do get him, okay. If not, it's not the end of the world. I still think we can get another 2C that's maybe on the right side of 30. That's not going to be 37 by the time this contract's over at $8 million, regardless if the cap goes up. Regardless if the cap goes up, it's just, do you want to take that kind of contract? And you're like, where's the risk? And I think for me, the risk is really high because, I put a tweet out yesterday that apparently a lot of people had thoughts about, was from The Athletic, that they were talking about how certain teams give up whatever top prospect. And for us, it was, Nikita Arnamarnov, and then it was like Jesper Kotkaniemi's part of the deal, and like 2 draft picks. And that got a whole slew of different opinions of like, no, yes, go do it. Oh, Miller's a legit 2C, stuff like this. But it's like, you're looking at a contract that's such a big risk of, is he going to fit this $8 million? And there's Canucks fans in the front office who don't feel like he's living up to that contract. And you're talking 5 more years of that. And here's the thing too, Kat, the Canucks don't want to retain any of that money. So even with the deal that was placed on through The Athletic, that's still so short of what that ask is. And then it's like, oh, let's throw Jack Roslovic into that trade. Let's go trade this guy and add it to the deal for Miller. And it's like, okay, but now you're taking 17 goals out of Roslovic off the roster. Yes, he's streaky, but he's been on a career year with the Hurricanes as well. Do you really want to give up a guy like that who has some speed that the team needs right now that is beneficial for them and has had a scoring touch? Yeah, is he cooled off? Yes, everyone has. It happens. Martin Nietzsche is right now at 51 points. He's still on a path for a career year, but he's not doing it the clip that he was earlier in the year. But do you really want to give up all these assets for a potential high-risk move that may or may not work? Will he fit in the locker room? I don't really know. Like, in the fact that, all these teams are going to lowball the Canucks because everyone knows what the problem is. The whole league knows that the Canucks are on a strength of they're in a strength of weakness. Of they don't have room to be like, we want this. We want Lafreniere, we want Schneider from the Rangers. We want these guys and prospects, and no team is going to be willing to give that up. And the Canucks have to retain something. They're not going to just be okay. Take all of $8 million of JT Miller, or take all 11.6 of Elias Pettersson. I don't think a team's willing to make that move right now, especially with guys who are not playing up to that price range. Now, if you ask me of who would I want from the Canucks, I take Brock Besser. He's 20. He's going to be 28 in the. Leave me out though. He's going to be 28 in the summer. He's a UFA. You get him for a lot less of a trade package, a lot less risk, and you can probably extend him. It's almost like another Jake Gensel move where you're making a flyer for this guy, but you can make it work to where he fits into the top 6. Does it address the two? He's a right winger.
Yeah,
but
I think that's everyone. Like I understand your argument for that. I think what everyone is saying is that the center is where we're so weak.
That's that for me. For me, that's an offseason move. It's an offseason move because who are you going to get as a 2C right now?
I also think it's an offseason move unless something crazy happens at the trade deadline, like what we did with Gensel. I don't think this team, if we're going to say like what would be okay with giving up, I could understand the trade of KK, Roslovic, and something. We don't typically like to deal with our like certain draft picks into like I know a lot of people are saying, okay, the Canes need to start being unselfish with some of their future because we've stacked up so hard on the future. But if you also look at our future that we didn't ever want to give up on was things like Jarvis or things like Blake, Nadeau, Morrow, like
Svechnikov, Aho, those guys.
These were future things that we were very much like, we'll wait. This is going to happen and it's going to come for us. And this is what we want. So I kind of like the forward thinking of the Canes. And I know it frustrates a lot of people because they're like, focus on now and you can do something now and then deal with it later. A lot of teams right now are dealing. There's a lot of teams right now dealing with, they did that. They didn't win the cup, and now they don't have anything to do now. Like they're stuck. A lot of them.
There's a lot of teams that are in a tough spot right now with their roster.
So as much as it frustrates me as time as a fan, like I understand. I think I also understand the long run of the game of like they're doing the long game. The Canes will do the long game because we're in the long game of doing so bad for so long, and it's like let's build up and not come back to this low of a point.
Yeah.
Ever. If there's anything like maybe we're not going to get as far this year, but like we have stayed at a consistent pace of making the playoffs, doing better and better and better. So I would be hesitant on what they would give up there. I don't know what they would want to give up in terms of prospects or drafts because that is valuable to us, like really valuable. I can understand KK and Roslovic just because again, Roslovic, it gives me, because he's gone cold, he gives me a little bit of like, all right, there's a little bit of a Bunting vibe. Like that might be someone I think in trade value, we would give up if we had to give up between the two. Roslovic would go before Robinson because Robinson is so versatile and you can put him anywhere.
Yeah,
Roslovic is the Bunting type where you're like, okay, we could give him up because like, yes, he's done well, but he's a little streaky. He's a little not sure.
His defensive game could use a little bit of work.
Oh my gosh, if I see him cheat out of our end before making sure the puck is out of there fully one more time, I'm going to be down on the ice yelling. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Robinson for me is a guy you extend and be dealt 2-3 years.
But that's what I'm saying is of those experiments, I can understand Roslovic being thrown in there. I understand KK being thrown in there. I feel really bad for Jarvis if that's the case. If you extend thinking you're there with your best friend and then these come up, but I could see it too. I do like the idea that KK is a future Jordan Staal. I do understand also addressing issues now. I don't think in this time of the season, just as I said with the goaltending, that I don't think this is the like knee-jerk reaction the Canes will have. I don't think there's another
trade. There has to be another trade that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, but again, this is how the front office, they work their magic. Tulsky works his magic. Canes fans, I know everyone's wanting now. Give me an answer now. I'm all about this guy. Do it. But they see so many more moving pieces than we do. We're looking as like a spectator at a chessboard saying like, oh, I see that move. That makes so much sense. Grab it. and they're on the other like backside saying, well, there's all this part, this moving part, this will affect us here, this will affect us later. So
there's analytics with this team. They're an analytic team that views guys differently. They view their salaries differently. I mean, because look at, you talked about contracts earlier. They didn't give a 7x7 to Trocheck. That's why we haven't a second line center since him. Mm-hmm. You didn't give a 7x7 to Shea. You didn't give the 5.5 to Brett Pesce, because while those guys are good, they just weren't the price that the Hurricanes are willing to give to get those guys. Because let's say you give Shea and Pesce their 12.5. Do you go give Jarvie his contract? Do you go get this guy, and this guy that fits the roster? It's just, you can't just go just blowing money on all these guys that you want to keep around. You got to make sure that the team fits within the cap space that you have, because that's what a cap league does. Yeah, it's going up next year. We got some cap coming off the books. Maybe next year is the year we go and be like, all right, let's go get guys, with the cap going to maybe $93, $94 million rather than being at 88, and you're up to it with like $100,000 or whatever it is in space.
Yeah.
I understand you want to make a move right now, but we've talked about it. When Don Waddell's the GM, now that Tulsky's the GM with, Darren York and all of them, and Rod Burnmore has a say in it too, and Tom Dundon. They're not going to go make a move just to make a move. It's going to be a move that benefits the team with the culture, with the style of play, with the character, because if you're going to be a problem in the locker room, we're just not going to deal with you. And also, it's too much of a risk. It's just too much of a risk.
I understand the spiral when we lose games, especially games we shouldn't be losing. I understand that spiral, but also I just think it's a little unfair to the team with all the effort they do, with where they find themselves in a season that a lot of people didn't have high expectations for them, what they've done, for them to be like, well, if they never let go of Trocheck, okay, Trocheck's doing well. Do you see the comparison of his team versus the Canes right now, though?
He has been a Hurricane for like seasons now. Like, it's been a bit since we've had Trocheck.
Yeah, and I know that's where you're like, oh, but that was our second. Like, we haven't had anyone since, and we should have kept him. And it's easy to say that when guys are struggling or when we're not doing so well in that role. But overall, the team is not like fallen to the wayside just because that position changed. Is it not what you want it to be exactly? Maybe, but also like you never would know like how those positions would all work. Listen, we all love to be couch GMs. We all love to be couch coaches. We're really good at being like, well, if they had just done this, or they need to do this move now to make sure everything's functioning.
You have another team
again,
that wants
we
the
say
same
it
thing.
Before we go to ads. I just want to say again, it's that time where it's just like, breathe. We're second in the Metro without that center that you guys all really, really want.
Or that goalie really that you really want to. Or that role. The thing too is, Kat, it's the thing of you can't just go make moves just to make moves. And it's at a time now where it's like, yeah, you're struggling, you want more of this, and that, but it's you have the team on the other side that also wants the same thing. They're not going to just go and give you their best players for, here's your fringe guys and some draft picks. That's just not how the league works.
Yeah,
it's not NHL 25 where you can make the trade difficulty the easy and you can just go get whoever. There is another team on the other side.
I think the unpaid intern always gets frustrated with me because when this news of players and stuff pops up, he's like, what do you think? Would you get him? And I'm always like, and he's always like, what? You don't want him? Like, what's that answer? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's so many moving parts, and there's like, I'm never quick to jump to it because the Canes aren't quick to jump to it. And I've seen so many other teams jump on deals that have been backfired, or they've been stuck with a really long contract, that I'm never like all on board of something, because I'm also like, I know there's too many moving parts, and that's just not how the Canes operate. I think it irritates him when there's that news and he's always like, tell me your hot take right now. And I'm like, I don't have one. But overall, it'll be interesting to see. Listen, they always report the Canes are on when there's a moving part, like JT Miller, they always report.
They're always talking to someone.
And that's fair because they are.
You have to do your job.
Even Dawn would say, like, yeah, talk to people. But like that's their job, is to talk to people and know everything. That doesn't mean they're like throwing in the whole shebang for that player. It's just like, let me see what's going to be offered. Even like, again, throw back to when Tulsky, when everyone was asking about the goalies, he's like, I'm talking to people, but they want Vezina money for non-Vezina goalies.
Yeah, so, we looked at I think it was we looked at Mackenzie Blackwood when it was San Jose at the time. We looked at Anton Forsberg going he's still with the Ottawa Senators. It's just the asking some deals just don't work because the asking prices are absolutely insane, and that's why you're not going to see moves like that happen. It's just pump the brakes, guys. These guys are in these positions for a reason, and you should know by this point if you're a Hurricanes fan. This is not a knee-jerk reaction team that's going to go make a trade and just go make a trade. They're not going to be New Jersey selling the farm to go get Timo Meier. And what's that really done? They're not going to
who in my opinion is not their most well-performing player. They've had other guys that they already had doing so well. I don't think
they're not going to go make a blockbuster. They're not going to team that's going to throw money at Steven Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea. No offense to Shea, but they're not going to throw money at guys.
They threw money. Listen, those are all superstars, but they Nashville threw money at them, got them, but weren't there was no guarantee that was all going to turn out. No, and it hasn't so far.